like to call to order the Hatfield Township Board of Commissioners conditional use hearing continuation dated July 17th, 2024. Roll call.
President Zipfel.
Here.
Vice President Rogers.
Here.
Commissioner Andrus.
Here.
Commissioner Lestraco.
Here.
Commissioner Partha.
Here. I would like to ask Commissioner Partha to lead us in tonight's Pledge of Allegiance.
Flag of the United States of America. Under God, indivisible.
All right, our singular basis for being here tonight is the continuation of the conditional use hearing. Do we need to take a motion to go into the hearing or just jump right in? No, you're in it. All right.
Good evening. How are you?
Doing well.
I think this is number 4, right?
Correct.
Okay. And you have another witness, right, Julie?
I do, John Kennedy.
Okay, sure.
The booklets.
While you do that, we'll have him sworn in. If you have extras, maybe there's people in the audience who are parties that could get a copy instead of waiting for the email. Anyone a party like a copy? How many? Do you have 2 more maybe? Oh, you handed out 2? Okay, let the record reflect that you shared some with the residents.
Good. John, will you please state your name and business address?
John H. Kennedy, 672 Main Street, Harleysville, PA.
And by whom are you employed and in what capacity?
I'm employed by Kennedy & Associates, planners and land use consultants. I'm the owner and principal of the business. I am the owner. I'm employed by Kennedy & Associates, and I'm the owner and the principal of the business.
And that's a private company, correct?
That is correct.
And then you also have municipal appointments as well, is that correct?
Yes. We have, in terms of my own personal appointments, I am a member of the Lower Southford Planning Commission, also the Indian Valley Regional Planning Commission, the Montgomery County Transportation Authority.
I don't want to steal your thunder. I know you want to qualify him as an expert in the field of land planning. Is that correct?
Well, land planning and zoning, but I wanted him to go through his qualifications in a
fine.
little bit more detail for the other parties and such that might not be as familiar with him.
That's fine. Just look up when you're ready to offer him, because I'm familiar with his credentials and I'm sure no one would object to him being qualified.
I'm familiar with his credentials as well.
But go
Thank
ahead.
you.
Go ahead.
I appreciate that. And I'm sorry, your municipal positions?
In terms of representation,
Yes.
we, in addition to doing work for private developers and private landowners, I'm also a municipal planner for Lansdale Borough and also for Hatboro. In addition, I also am currently working for Lower Gwinnett Township.
And how long have you held those positions?
Lansdale, I have been the planner since 2018. Hatboro, I've been the planner 2020. Lower Gwinnett, I just started working for.
Okay, and
John, can I just, I'm sorry, the microphones are so touchy. If you just turn your head a little, we can't hear any of it. So
Okay, sorry about
if you
that.
could just point it up towards your face and kind of stay close, that would be awesome.
Okay.
Thank you.
and can you describe your duties and job responsibilities at your municipal appointment?
Sure. Primarily for Lansdale and for Hatboro, I will review applications for land developments, subdivisions. I also will review any kind of ordinances that are proposed in terms of whether they're proposed by a landowner or proposed by the borough. I also assist with the zoning officer just in terms of reviewing different applications or different proposals, I guess, from various landowners and business owners. In Lower Gwinnett, it's a little bit more of a special, sort of a special case in the sense that they have several properties that they would like to consider rezoning, and so we are assisting them in terms of reviewing what would be appropriate in terms of zoning regulations.
And then in your private practice at Kennedy and Associates, what are your job responsibilities and duties there?
In terms of working for private landowners and developers, we perform a variety of different types of tasks. We will examine different pieces of land that our clients bring to us in terms of feasibility to see what, in fact, they can achieve on a property within certain zoning parameters. Sometimes they don't have any idea of what they want to do, so we will actually give them a few different ideas on what they could do. We also get involved in writing zoning ordinances and text amendments and map amendments, both for our clients as private landowners, and sometimes we end up in those situations working for the municipality as well. The other part of our private practice is we do a fair amount of condemnation work, and so we analyze property in terms of the impact of condemnation of land. So we'll do an analysis of what can be put on the land before the condemnation and what can be put on the land after the condemnation.
Would that include values of property?
We don't get involved in actual land values. We do get involved in quantifying the actual yield, however, so number of units, number of square feet, et cetera. Then an appraiser would use that to base the value.
And do you also draft site plans?
We do. We do quite a bit of actual site design, and that varies from all different sizes. May just be 1 or 2 acres on up to, we've worked on properties as large as 3,500 acres.
And then do you also provide analysis with compatibility of uses in a neighborhood and effect on property value?
Yes. In fact, sometimes it's just done in a very informal way while you are working on a project. Other times it's done in a much more formal way in the form of, say, a community impact statement when a rezoning would be proposed.
Okay, and have you been accepted as an expert witness before municipal zoning hearing boards, governing bodies, and the like?
Yes, I have.
And many, would you say?
Easily several dozen, in addition to Pennsylvania Court of Common Pleas, and also Pennsylvania Board of Views.
And Hatfield Township, have you been accepted as an expert?
Yes, I've testified here both in front of the Board of Commissioners and in front of the Zoning Hearing Board several times.
And were you accepted as an expert in land planning and zoning?
Yes, I was.
Going to show you tab 15, so that's A15 of the exhibit booklet. Can you identify that, please?
Yes, that's a copy of my CV.
And I think I neglected to ask you about your education and maybe some of your affiliations.
Sure. I have a Bachelor of Science in Environmental Design. I've practiced land planning for 44 years and had my own business for the last 34 years. In addition to belonging to the American Institute of Certified Planners, the American Planning Association, Pennsylvania Planning Association, the Urban Land Institute.
And in your CV, does it have a partial list of your clients and projects
It
that you've
does.
worked on, including residential and mixed-use developments?
Yes.
Capture it all.
Okay.
And then you work in other states as well.
I have. Previously, I worked for a large national architecture firm, and we worked on projects as far west as Colorado, down from Florida to Massachusetts.
With that, I would ask that he be qualified as a land planner and zoning, land planning and zoning.
Any objection?
No questions on qualifications and no objection to the offer.
Objection from the board? No objections. Okay, he's accepted.
Wonderful, thank you. John, were you keep wanting to sit back, sorry. Were you engaged by the applicant with regard to this application?
Yes, I was.
And what was the scope of that engagement?
I was engaged to review the township's zoning and subdivision code and any other pertinent documents, to go and visit the site, to also review the proposed conditional use plan, and then also just to comment on the appropriateness of the proposed use on the property.
And did you also review the other exhibits in the exhibit booklet? I think we're up to A15 at this point.
Yes, I have.
Okay, and you've also been present at each one of these conditional use hearings, which I believe there now has been, this is the fourth hearing. Is that correct?
I have attended all of the hearings.
And again, this application proposes a single-family detached dwelling cluster development, which is permitted by conditional use, correct?
That is correct.
And have you worked in your capacity as land planner on other single-family detached dwelling cluster developments in Hatfield Township?
Yes, I have.
And which ones are those?
Previously, I've worked on two clusters. The first one would be a project called Westport Farms, which I believe was approximately 2006. And that was that property was zoned ER, and it was what's called a Type B cluster under the zoning ordinance. The other cluster that I had worked on was the Walter property, which is a little bit more recent. I think we were working on that in 2018 and 2019. That's actually off of Cowpath Road and Township Line Road.
And if you want to place on the big screen so everyone can see, I'm going to direct John's attention to A16, which is the Walter record plan. Should be the next one. Oh, there you go. That's it. Thank you.
A16?
Correct.
Thank you.
Just
And as you mentioned,
objection, just for relevance. Walter's a completely different plan, presumably in a different zoning district, a different parcel. We haven't heard any testimony about present parcel.
if I may, first, Mr. Pazzinas already testified to other cluster developments within the township without objection, and John is using this to state his familiarization with the conditional use requirements for cluster developments, which are the same in the district, and all of which have open space requirements, which my witnesses have been extensively cross-examined on the open space, as well as they were cross-examined on the width of the roadways, the cartways, the right-of-ways, and this is being shown that this is typical practice for the township to approve these types of developments.
Renew the relevance objection.
So your proffer is that this is relevant regarding the open space composition and the width of the roads. Width of the roads you objected to, saying that that was a subdivision and land development issue.
I absolutely did, and over my objection, those questions continue to arise over my objection. So this is being in rebuttal for those questions that were already asked.
Well, the width of the roads I don't think is relevant to your conditional use application, as you aptly pointed out. But if there's something about this application that's relevant as far as the configuration of the open space, I'll give you some latitude to ask questions about the open space issues.
I'm going to ask that we stop the hearing and that I go to court, because this has been already discussed through the testimony of Mr. Pazzinas without objection, and questions were specifically asked, and we have been repeatedly asked about whether we spoke with the fire marshal with regarding the roadways, the emergency access, that type of thing, and we were denied access to speak with the fire marshal. So at this point, if this is where we're going to go without me not being able to present my case, I think we might have to have a discussion
Okay.
at a higher level.
You said three things. Number one, Mr. Pazzinas was your witness. It's not as if the opposite party opened the door and we let it and now you're rebutting.
He
Hang
did.
Hang on, that's number one. What was your second point? About the access to the fire marshal? I believe there was a question as to whether or not you contacted the fire marshal, and the answer was you did not. I don't see how that's relevant to Mr. Kennedy's
We
testimony.
did question, that's just not accurate, okay? It was asked whether we had reached out to the fire marshal. Every single hearing we have had, we have been asked whether we reached out to the fire marshal since the last hearing.
How is that relevant
So
to
it's
Mr. Kennedy's
Because
testimony?
he's going to testify with regard to the safety of the roadways. Now, the township has raised that issue with regard to safety of the access points, the roadways, the width of the roadways, and the access points. And so that's what he's going to testify to with regard to these other plans.
Well, I
And
think
what
you can
has been
testify. Hang
provided.
on a second. You have the ability to subpoena the fire marshal if you'd like to. You haven't requested that, nor has that been denied of you.
I shouldn't have to subpoena
Well,
the fire
I
marshal.
want to know how this plan, and I'm willing to give you some latitude, Julie, but how is this plan relevant to the conditional use on the property, which is the subject of this hearing? That's what I'm trying to hone in on.
Because safety issues have been raised by Mr. Panzer and each one of the members of the board asking questions
in the
with
zoning
regard
ordinance.
to access.
It's in the zoning ordinance. Safety, public health, safety, and welfare is one of the elements
And-
of a conditional use. So why don't you ask Mr. Kennedy to testify about your plan? Because that's the subject of this hearing.
Because it was raised,
It was, there was
safety of
questions.
the
Sure.
cartway widths, which are saldo, and I did originally object because I said that's a saldo issue. It is absolutely not a zoning ordinance criteria, and I was overruled. And so there was testimony then with regard to the cartway widths, the right-of-way widths, the cul-de-sac, and whether we've spoken with the fire marshal about that. So if the fire marshal has approved those cartway widths on other plans that are cluster family developments, it's absolutely relevant.
Well, then you can call the fire marshal.
I don't need to call the fire marshal.
I think your witness answered those questions. So I'll give you some latitude with this plan. You can talk about the open space. The cartway width, I agreed with you that it wasn't relevant, that it is a saldo issue. But if you want to spend more time in here about a plan that has nothing to do with this application, I mean, touch on it. But I don't want to spend another hour, or it's an hour that you're giving up for your client.
There were safety concerns raised by Mr. Panzer and the board members through the cross-examination of my clients with regard to the roadway widths, with regard to the emergency access. I can absolutely, and it is relevant to demonstrate what this township has approved in the past with regard to cartway widths, emergency access, and open space. Those were all questions that were asked, and I am going to demonstrate what has been approved in the past by this township.
So you're going to use your expert in the field of land planning and zoning to testify as to safety?
He's testifying as to these other plans and what was approved.
All right,
I mean,
well,
if you want me to wait until rebuttal, I mean, you know, I can.
I'm just trying to be efficient, and if you want to spend a few
I
minutes
wasn't
on
going to
this
spend a
plan-
lot of time, but I was going to ask a few questions about it, but I was.
It would probably be more appropriate as rebuttal because the fire marshal will undoubtedly be testifying in our case in chief.
He's testifying.
That a surprise that the township special counsel is going to call witnesses?
No. Well, I haven't been told that he was, but I can assume that he would. But I was never told that he was going to call witnesses. I was never given any information or documentation.
Do you have additional
and
witnesses
my consultant
tonight?
wasn't allowed to talk to the fire marshal, even though he was lambasted by the commissioners
Who was
for not
lambasted?
testing. How many times was he asked if he spoke? Each one of my, well, the two. I had two witnesses. It was Chris Pazinas and Matt Hammond, and they were both asked numerous occasions. And it even concerned the residents because some of the parties then asked, why haven't you talked to the fire marshal?
And you had the opportunity to address those questions. And this isn't a criminal case where Mr. Panzer has to disclose to you, just like you haven't disclosed to him, your roster of witnesses. So let's just focus on the case at hand. If you would like to ask some questions about the design of this lot in order to draw some conclusion that your client is being treated unfairly, I'll let you have some latitude. But I don't want to get bogged down in going through all these past subdivisions that are not in the same zoning district as your client's property.
If they're single-family cluster developments and they have the same criteria, then they are relevant. And in terms of safety and design.
Get started, and then we'll see where it goes.
So focusing back on the Walter property. Was the Walter property development and the record plan approved by the township?
Yes, it was.
And has this development been constructed?
Yes, it has just been completed.
And how many access driveways does this development have?
Well, objection. If we're talking about a plan, can we identify the plan for the record so we're all on the same literal page?
I agree. Please do that.
Just the foundation is the objection.
It's A16. It is the record. Walter Property Record Site Plan prepared by Holmes Cunningham dated August 12, 2020, recorded in the Montgomery County Recorder of Deeds Office at Plan Book 0054, page 0188 on November 27, 2020.
Thank you.
How many access drives does this property have?
There are two access drives. Whoops. Down here along Cowpath Road and here along Township Line Road.
And are there any emergency access driveways?
No, there are not.
And what are the cartway widths for this development?
28 feet.
Is that on the plan anywhere? I don't see it if it is.
I'm not sure if it's on this sheet. I can tell you I came up with 28 feet by actually measuring it.
You mean on,
Measuring the street.
out in the field, right, John? Curb to curb?
Inside of curb to inside of curb.
Okay.
And would you please describe the common open space area on this plan?
Sure. In this particular plan, there are two pieces of open space. One is right here, which is close to, it's the lower left-hand corner. And then across the street, I believe this is called Murphy's Way. Across the street, there is a larger piece of open space which wraps around the balance of the development. The areas in white that you see are stormwater basins, so they do not count in the calculation of the open space. It's this kind of diagonal hatch pattern that you see right here. That is actually the common open space.
And so in order to get to the areas of open space, you have to cross the street and walk on a sidewalk and go in between a property to get to common open space, correct?
That's correct.
From the other.
To get from this open space, you would have to walk out to the street, get on the sidewalk, go down towards the intersection, and then cross the street to get back into this piece of open space.
And was that open space area, which is connected by street and sidewalk, approved as a continuous system of open space?
Yes, it was.
And was it approved by the Board of Commissioners at a conditional use hearing?
Yes, it was.
And this plan, again, was dated 2020?
I believe that's correct, yes.
And who signed that record plan?
It was signed by Mr. Lipfeld. Zipfeld, I'm sorry.
I'm not the only one who signed it, though.
Yeah, let's move on. We're moving on, right?
No, I believe there
Yeah.
are two signatures.
Been through each one of them that I've signed. I'm not the only one that signed.
I understand.
Yeah, the implication is unnecessary. You moving on to 17 now?
Me?
It's a-
Are you, what? No.
You're going to ask him if the president of the board signed the plan along with the
It's
township
impor-
engineer, the manager, the recorder of deeds, the owner, everyone else that signed this plan. It's a record plan. It's recorded. Of course it's signed.
Since you're making me continue
Angry?
to go down this road,
Angry? Am I making you angry?
you're not really making me angry, but
What's the relevance, Julie?
the relevance is that Mr. Zipfel asked my witness, my applicant's engineer, whether the common open space that was designed on A8, our plan, was a tortuous interpretation of the common open space.
So you pointed out that he signed the plan. That's your retort?
Yes, he thinks that it's
Are
a
you ready to move
torturous
on with your case?
interpretation.
Are you
So
ready to
I'm
move
trying
on?
to show that he approved it in other plans,
I
which is
understand exactly
completely
what you're
relevant.
trying to do. If you could move on to your next exhibit, we would appreciate it.
I think this tone is getting a little bit unnecessary, and I don't know if maybe we should stop for this evening and maybe consider, I don't know, maybe hiring or, appointing a hearing officer to sit for these hearings. I think it's getting a little bit out of control.
Continue with your case. No one's stopping you, but I think you're done. There was a relevancy question as to this exhibit.
Said that I have implications and interpretations, and you're making it sound that I am doing something that's untoward or improper.
I think
which
with
I
that
am
last
not.
question you did. So I'd ask that you move on. It's your choice. This is your hearing. This is your application.
And I
But
can
you-
also request an independent hearing officer
Well,
to
you can do
to
whatever
hear
you want,
this
Julie.
if this is going to continue, because I'm not going to be, spoken to that way when I'm trying to put on a case.
What's your choice? Are you moving on?
I will continue. John, I'm showing you what's applicant's Exhibit A17.
Same objection.
Let's hear what it is first.
This is the Westport Farm final overall record plan prepared by Duffy Engineering Company LLC dated August 23, 2006, recorded in the Montgomery County Recorder of Deeds Office at Plan Book 0027, page 0422 on October 2, 2006. This was one of the plans John mentioned that he was involved with this project and was the land planner for this project, and it's the same offer as the last plan.
Same offer as to the configuration of the open space and the width of the streets?
We'll stick with the open space for this.
Okay, go ahead. Overruled.
John, I believe you mentioned that you worked in your capacity as land planner on the Westport Farm project, correct?
That is correct.
And does the plan Exhibit A17 show a single-family detached dwelling cluster development?
Yes, it does.
And was a conditional use approval required for this development?
Yes, it was.
Was the Westport Farm development and the record plan approved by the township?
Yes.
Has it been built?
Yes, it has been constructed.
Please describe the common open space area shown on the plan.
Sure. This has a total of 9 different pieces of open space. This is, just for reference, Berge Road right here. This wide swath right here is a electric easement, PICO easement. Basically, the open space are all on north of the PICO easement. There's a series of small pieces of open space. Each one is labeled. Then there's one small piece down here, one here, I believe one here, for a total of 9 separate pieces.
And was the common open space area shown on Exhibit A17 approved by the township as a continuous system of open space?
Yes, it was.
And was it approved by the Board of Commissioners at a conditional use hearing?
Yes, it was.
And does this residential development connect to another residential development?
Yes, it did. There's a, on this lower part, here, there we go. This lower section right here tied into a stub road, which was the, I believe it was called the Bellevue neighborhood. It was Bellevue Avenue, I think. Right here, there was a stub that was built several years earlier when this was completed. And then when PH Properties came back and did this particular property, they tied into this stub, made one continuous street, curbing, and sidewalk.
And you were present for the hearing when Mr. Hammond testified, and do you agree with his testimony that in the applicant's project that the Grapevine Drive and Buckthorn Drive terminate the stub roads into the property for the purpose of future development?
Yes, I do agree with that.
And is that fairly common?
It's very common. It's also considered to be good planning practice to be able to leave stubs so that neighborhoods can be interconnected.
Okay, I'm going to direct your attention to Exhibit A18. That's the Bexley Development Cover Sheet and overall site plan prepared by Bowler Engineering dated August 31st, 2021, recorded in Montgomery County Recorder of Deeds Office at Plan Book 0056, page 0391 on December 3rd, 2021.
Same objection.
And your
Same offer. Does this plan show a single-family detached dwelling cluster development?
Yes, it does.
And was a conditional use approval required for this development?
Yes, it was.
Was the development and plan approved by the Board of Commissioners?
Yes.
Has it been constructed?
Yes, it is under construction right now, and the home lots are filling in.
And how many access roads does this development have?
There is one very long cul-de-sac labeled Holly Lane,
And how long is that cul-de-sac?
2,026 feet long.
And what is the width of the cul-de-sac cartway?
28 feet.
And was a waiver granted by the Board of Commissioners to allow a 28-foot wide cul-de-sac width?
Yes, it was.
And does the one main cul-de-sac access connect to and provide access through a residential development?
Yes, this area right here, this was really an existing T intersection at Holly Lane and Pelham Drive, and the long cul-de-sac was basically extended from that intersection.
And would you please describe the common open space area shown on the Bexley plan?
Sure, there's a combination of 4 different pieces of common open space on this plan. One of them is right here.
When you say here, can you please describe it a little?
Sure, I'm pointing to a small area that's towards the northern end of the property, cul-de-sac bulb. Then across the street, there's a much larger piece of open space which wraps around the back of most of the lots. That's on these.
I don't see the pointer. Can you orient us?
This is Pelham Drive.
Plan right, plan left.
On plan right here.
But
Do a
it
little
is going,
background. Holly and Pelham, got it.
Right, okay. And so the cul-de-sac continues Holly Lane up here, coming towards the end. This little bend, elbow bend that you see here, this road right here, portion of a road on the top of the sheet, is also Orvilla Road. So the 4 open spaces, again, were, one is a small piece near the bulb of Holly Lane. The other one is a larger piece, open space that runs roughly parallel to Holly Lane and wraps around the back of these lots on the southern side. Then there is a of open space right in this area, maybe about 500 feet in. And then there is a small of open space on the eastern edge of the property. Those last 2 that I just named are actually interrupted. Road stub or a future right-of-way for a road stub. Right.
And so those separate areas of common open space require crossing a street and traversing a sidewalk, correct?
They are continuously connected by sidewalks in this case.
And was this common open space area approved by the Board of Commissioners as a continuous system of open space?
Yes, it was.
Okay. Moving on to A19. A19 is, I will identify it first. The Del Webb recorded final land development plan cover sheet and overall site plan prepared by Bowler Engineering dated April 9th, 2021, recorded in the Montgomery County Recorder of Deeds office at Plan Book 005, page 0420 on July 21st, 2021. And you also worked on this project, is that correct?
That is correct.
No objection,
objection?
relevance.
Same response.
I'm sorry, John. What'd you say?
I didn't see anything.
Julie, what was your response?
Same response, same offer.
So the offer is for the open space configuration and the width of the streets?
It's just for the width of the streets.
If I'm not mistaken, Del Webb is an HOA. I don't know whether the streets are dedicated or not. If they're not, I think that further strengthens my objection.
It's an age,
Whether they're dedicated or not.
what, they're private streets versus public streets. And it's an age-restricted community, right?
Correct. I was just using it for the width of the roadways.
All right, Mr. Panzer, you can handle any differentiation you want to make in the plans in your cross or with other witnesses, but go ahead, Julie.
It'll be quick. So could you please describe the internal roadways for that?
Sure. Just for reference, this is 40-foot road right here. So across the street, this is directly across the street from the Lowe's Shopping Center. And the main entrance is here at Clemens Road, and 40-foot, which comes in, this is a wide boulevard with a, when we get up to here, a 60-foot right-of-way. And off of this road, there are a number of smaller roads. Northern part of and upper part of the plan has single-family detached. As you go further south, there's a mixture of single-family detached and single-family attached, which are carriage homes.
And was a waiver granted by the Board of Commissioners for right-of-way widths?
Yes, it was.
And do you know what that,
The right-of-ways on these internal streets are 44 feet wide.
and then the cartway widths?
The cartway widths on these streets are 28 feet. On some of the smaller streets where the multifamily units are, they're 24 feet wide. Here's one example, 24 feet, that's 24 feet.
What units?
Yeah, you're going to have to
The
describe them a
multifamily
little better.
units.
Yep.
And this one right here is also 24 feet, this little cul-de-sac.
And were waivers granted by the Board of Commissioners to allow those cartway widths for 24 feet wide cul-de-sac
Yes,
and for the 28 feet wide?
correct, yes.
Okay. So now I'd like to turn your attention back to A8, which is the applicant's conditional use plan. And I would ask you, in your professional opinion as a expert land planner, is the common open space area designed as a continuous system of open space?
In my opinion, it is. It can all be, first of all, it, for the most part, all touches. The areas that do not necessarily touch are connected by sidewalks, which is no different than the previous plans that we just looked at, the Walter Cluster Plan and also the West Park Farm Cluster Plan.
And is that true of the Bexley?
Yes, that plan also does have open space, which does not necessarily touch, all the open space pieces do not abut, but they are continuously connected by a sidewalk system.
And again, you testified you've been present throughout these conditional use hearings, correct?
Yes, I have.
And you've been at, and when you've been at these hearings, do you recall the testimony of Chris Pazinas, the project's civil engineer, discussing the sewer line conveyance capacity issue and its resolution by installation of a sewer line upgrade?
Yes, I do remember that.
And in your experience as a planner, is it common for developers to upgrade sewer piping to resolve conveyance capacity issues?
That is very common.
Does it also confer a benefit on the municipality?
It does, depending on where the pipe is located. In this case, I believe it would be located in Orvilla Road. And in that sense, it actually represents a positive impact to the township and to the surrounding neighbors, because it will increase the sewer capacity. Any homes which are on-site systems in that area would easily be able to connect to sewer.
And has Mr. Pazinas' testimony been confirmed by the Hatfield Township Municipal Authority?
It has.
Objection, hearsay.
And is that,
Hang on, there's an objection.
okay, I'm going to direct his attention to A21.
All right, I was going to overrule it anyway, so go ahead.
I'll direct your attention to, Exhibit A20. Can you please identify that?
That's a letter from the Hatfield Township Municipal Authority dated June 21, 2024.
And does that letter confirm that Mr. Pazinas' testimony
Yes, it does.
regard to
Yes, it
conveyance
does.
capacity issues? Okay. Now I want to turn your attention to the general conditional use criteria. That's section 282.205.b.
Okay.
So I want to ask you first, are the conditional use criteria applicable to any and all conditional uses?
Yes, any conditional use in any district in the township would need to follow these criteria or these standards before it could be granted. So the board, in a sense, uses these as a goal, or as a guideline, rather. But one thing to keep in mind is that that applies to residential clusters like we're looking at this evening, but it would also apply to a shipping warehouse or a convenience store or a retail center if it were a conditional use in that district. So these do apply to all different uses and districts.
And in your professional opinion, are these criteria subjective criteria?
They are. It's not the same thing as an objective criteria where it can be quantified. For instance, a lot area or a front yard setback. That's something that could easily be quantified. And so you either have the minimum lot area or you don't.
And the first general criteria states, where applicable, there shall be a market analysis showing need and impact of the proposed use. So as an expert in land planning and zoning and having drafted numerous zoning ordinance provisions, what is the significance of where applicable?
Well, what it really means is that this requirement does not necessarily, it's not necessarily to be applied to all uses or all proposed conditional uses. There's some uses where it may be appropriate to do a market analysis, and other ones where it's either not appropriate or just not necessary.
And in your expert opinion, would this type of analysis be applicable to a single-family detached dwelling cluster development?
Objection calls for a legal conclusion, which is purview of the Board of Commissioners.
Ask the question again, Julie.
Whether that requirement would be applicable to a single-family detached dwelling cluster development.
Overrule, that's a matter of his opinion. Go ahead, John.
I think that it would not be necessary, simply for the fact that it's a well-known fact, and it's widely known that in today's environment, we simply do not have enough housing. There's a tremendous housing shortage in this country, and so we know that the demand is there for housing. There's a demand for housing of all different types. So in my mind, it would not be necessary to even do any kind of market analysis.
And to your knowledge, has any township representative advised that a market analysis is applicable and required for this application?
No.
And if it's determined to be applicable, do you have a market analysis-based opinion as to the need and impact of the proposed single-family detached dwelling cluster development?
I think, again, if you actually did take the time to do a market analysis, you would discover that there is a tremendous need, not just in this country and in this state, but in this region and in this county, that there is a real need for housing. Our governor has recently committed to spending millions of dollars to create new housing. Our county commissioners have made that one of their stated goals. And so clearly there is the demand for housing. There is really not the need to determine if we need this. This type of housing is most likely going to be what I would call a move-up type buyer. And so somebody who buys a home in here, they're freeing up another home, maybe a smaller home, starter home. It's all kind of a continuum and interconnected. So any housing we can build helps solve this problem in part.
The second general criteria states that the establishment, maintenance, or operation of the conditional use will not be detrimental to or endanger the public health, safety, morals, comfort, or general welfare. In your professional opinion, will the proposed use be detrimental to or endanger the public health, safety, morals, comfort, or welfare?
No, in my opinion, it won't. The proposed use are single-family detached homes on a clustered lot, so it's a combination of a single-family lot and open space. It's basically the same use that surrounds the subject property.
And the third general criteria states that the conditional use will not be injurious to the use and the enjoyment of the properties in the immediate vicinity for the purposes already permitted, nor substantially diminish and impair property values within the neighborhood. And in your professional opinion, will the proposed use be injurious to the use and enjoyment of the properties in the immediate vicinity for the purposes already permitted or substantially diminish and impair property values within the neighborhood?
In my opinion, no, it will not. Again, the use is single-family detached homes. The subject property is surrounded by single-family dwellings on at least 3 sides and a vacant piece of land on the 4th side with the same zoning. So it would really be simply a continuation of the neighborhood that it exists in. The proposed plan does include significant buffer areas, and the landscaping is something that would be examined much more closely in the land development phase. In terms of adjacent property values, these homes are going to sell for probably significantly more than the homes around them, and so they won't really have a negative impact. If anything, they will probably have a positive impact on the surrounding neighbors and will probably help either steady or increase their home values.
Okay, the fourth general criteria states that the establishment of the conditional use will not impede the normal and orderly development or improvement of the surrounding property for uses permitted in the district. In your professional opinion, will the proposed use impede the normal and orderly development or improvement of the surrounding property for uses permitted in the district?
No, in my opinion, it won't. In terms of the potential other properties that could be developed, the vacant properties, we have one just, I guess, to the north of the site, and then we also have a much larger one to the south. The development of this property will not impede the ability to develop those properties. And in terms of any kind of improvements, we would have no impact at all on any surrounding neighbors who wanted to improve their homes. Again, the proposed use is a single-family lot, so it is the same use that is found around the subject property.
And in your professional opinion as an expert land planner, will this proposed single-family detached dwelling cluster development generate any greater impacts than that normally generated by such use?
No, I think the fact that this is surrounded by single-family detached neighborhoods, the amount of impact is pretty much going to be just the same as the surrounding neighborhood. So I would not expect any greater negative impact to be generated by this proposed conditional use.
That's all I have for this witness.
Mr. Panzer.
Let's start at A16, if you would, Mr. Campbell.
Okay.
So this is the Walter property development, yes?
That's correct.
Was a conditional use, you said?
Yes.
Did you say there's no emergency access?
No. I said there was no emergency access.
No emergency access. What's the lot area on this, the gross lot area?
I believe the total site area?
Yes,
It's
gross site area, thank you.
it's somewhere around 34, 35 acres, I believe.
And what's the use on it?
It is a single-family detached cluster.
And accompanying this site plan, approved record plan that's attached to Exhibit A16, there were other documents that went into final plan approval, yes?
Yes, there were.
So not the least of which would have been the final plan approval letter or resolution, right?
Yes, that is correct.
Which outlines waivers, requirements, other will comply issues, right, typically?
Correct, yes.
That's not attached to this exhibit.
That is also correct, yes.
You know the history of the zoning for this property?
Yes, I do.
It was actually rezoned to RA2 from light industrial, was it not?
And I testified at the rezoning hearing.
And was there additional zoning relief that was granted as part of the approval process?
Objection, relevance.
Just asking about background and how this particular plan was approved.
Not relevant.
Overruled, you opened the door.
I don't recall any other,
Do you recall how many hearings went into the ultimate plan approval?
Objection, irrelevant.
What
Well,
about the process, right? I'm just trying to understand the process for this particular property as opposed to the property that we're here for tonight.
yeah, I have to let him ask the questions. This is why I wanted to avoid this whole exercise, because you opened the door about this plan and how it's relevant, so he gets to go into some background, especially if Mr. Kennedy is familiar with the process.
I open the door to limited areas of testimony. If he wants to ask about the plan itself, the exhibit, I understand that. Going way, way beyond what is relevant and asking about rezoning and how it came to be doesn't matter in what I asked.
It goes to my ultimate point, which is every property is unique and every application is unique. So using 4 other plans is not illustrative of what should happen on this particular
Well, thank you for your argument, but when there is a requirement for continuous system of open space, and I'm showing that it has been granted in the past, that's what's relevant.
We talked about waivers, we talked about other issues, and I intend to delve into each for each property.
I talked about the common open space and the size of the roadways, and that's what the testimony was limited to.
An entire plan, which is one component of the approval process. This was a conditional use, there's a conditional use decision. That's not part of the application. I was presented with this plan this evening. Testimony, none of this was disclosed ahead of time, and so I'd like a little bit of latitude to ask some questions so I can determine what information I need to obtain in order to adequately assess whether this testimony is truly relevant to the application at hand.
None of this was disclosed ahead of time. Should we start back down that road again? I think
You are going first. The Township Special Counsel has an opportunity. So look, I'm going to give him a little latitude, just like I gave you a little latitude. Tom, I don't want to spend way too much time on the history of each plan and every approval condition, but, you know, do what you need to do in order to ascertain what information you might need to acquire.
Remember the question?
how many hearings were there?
Yes.
Conditional use hearing?
Start with that.
I believe there was one.
And rezoning hearings.
There were multiple. I'm not sure how many.
And in addition to public hearings, there were
Object.
meetings with residents,
Objection.
There were meetings with residents.
with township officials.
Objection.
Yes.
A17. This is Westport Farm, was 2006.
Correct.
That's nearly 20 years ago.
I hate to say yes, but I will. Yes.
What's the zoning district on this one?
This was ER, I believe.
What was it? I couldn't hear you.
ER?
And it was a conditional use plan?
Yes.
And again, presumably, there's a conditional use decision, which is not attached to the plan, correct?
That is correct.
You know the gross site area for this property?
I do not.
How would you describe the shape of the lot? Site.
Very odd-shaped.
It looks rather, well,
Is that a technical term?
Well, I could have said, sort of like a machine gun or a ray gun or something, but yes, it's a very odd-shaped site. It does have a lot of utility easements.
long and lean with multiple utility easements? Would that be a fair description? Yes?
I would think so.
A18. 18 is the Bexley land development, right?
Correct.
And the zoning district for this one?
I believe this one is RA1.
And the gross site area?
That I do not know.
Shouldn't it be on the plan?
It is on the plan.
Having trouble reading the plan?
It has a larger copy.
I have a larger copy so that I can.
Lucky you.
You were provided this copy via email 2 months ago.
I don't think so.
Did you send plans via email? I don't remember seeing
Yes,
the plan.
remember I had to send the CAD files and the plans that were discussed.
I thought that was for your conditional use plan.
No, it was these as well because Mr. Pazinas referenced them, and they were requested.
But there's no large plans that were submitted as part of the packet to the township, or was it just emailed?
It was sent via, well, no, did I send? I sent something
There were some full size.
large, but I can't.
I think you sent your conditional use plan that you updated. You want me to call it revised, but the second conditional use plan that you had, those you sent in large copy, but I don't recall getting large copy. I'm also struggling to read what's on this plan. I'm wondering if large copies could be provided.
Certainly.
Great, that would be helpful. So were you able to pick up the gross site area?
Just over 36 acres.
So this is the property with the long cul-de-sac, right?
That's correct.
Holly Lane. And how many units, how many of these cluster units are on that 36 gross site area?
Well, there's a total of, I believe it's 36 lots, and 34 of the 6 lots are off of the cul-de-sac.
So 36 lots on the 36-acre gross site area property, yes?
Correct.
And what is that at the top of the plan that goes from Holly Lane, Corridor Villa Road?
This area right here, this is an emergency access.
And can you tell whether it's paved?
It appears to be a 20-foot paved road.
20 feet paved.
When you say 20 feet, could you clarify width?
25 feet of width.
20 feet of width.
Correct, 20 feet of width.
And you mentioned waivers being granted for approval of this plan. Was it road width that a waiver was granted, did you say?
Yes, a waiver was granted for the width of the cul-de-sac.
So the plan didn't comply, a waiver was granted, right?
That is correct. That's waiver number 1 that's listed. It's, the SALDA requires a width of 34 feet for a cul-de-sac, and this road is 28 feet.
Where are you reading from?
It's page 1 of the exhibit. So this exhibit has 2 sheets. It has the preliminary final land development plans, and it contains the notes
Wait, I'll read them when
and
they're...
waivers and such.
I'll read them when they're full-sized. Any zoning relief granted for this property?
Not that I could see.
You participate in those conditional use hearings?
No, I did not.
Have you reviewed the conditional plan approval letter or resolution?
No, I did not.
19 is the Del Webb property or development.
Correct.
So earlier I indicated that this was an HOA. Do you know that to be true?
Yes, these streets are maintained by an HOA.
And so they're private streets,
They are private streets.
gated community?
One of the entrances is gated.
The-
Correct.
The use is what?
This was under multifamily elderly zoning, and it's an active adult community.
So, you know whether the use generates fewer trips using the IT trip generation manual
Objection.
with the use? Do you know? Are you aware?
I am not fully aware of the differences.
Greater than one access, greater than one access on this property?
There are 2 access points and 1 emergency access.
Two gated, one emergency? Total of 3?
There's 3 access points to the property. This is 40-foot road. There's the upper access, as I'll call it, is across from Clemens Road. The lower access is across from the Hatfield Point Shopping Center where Lowe's is. And then there is an emergency access connecting up here to the road stub of Penfield.
Let's look at Exhibit A8, if we could. A8.
There you go.
Now, when discussing the plan that was, I think, A17, talked about stubbing streets in existing developments was good planning practice for future development of other sites, yes?
That's correct.
And so, in this case, I think you were referring to Plan A8, Grapevine Drive and Buckthorn Drive as stubs to the parcel we're talking about, yes?
That is correct.
Now, there's a parcel planned south, multiple parcels planned south to the proposed plan on A8, yes?
That's correct.
And I see no stub streets planned on A8 to access those lots or to provide access from those lots should they be developed. Is that accurate?
That is accurate.
When were you engaged to perform the services that you talked about earlier in your testimony on this project?
I would have to, I'd have to go back and actually look at my records to see what that exact date was. This plan had already been presented to me.
And not A8 because A8 had been revised slightly, but the earlier version of the plan.
That's correct, yes.
So the open space was already laid out.
Yes,
Street, the composite of the street was laid out.
correct.
Number of dwellings laid out.
Yes,
Location of basins, all that was provided to you for your review
that's correct.
and opinion.
That's correct.
On the plan, A8, see the proposed emergency access from Road B to Buckthorn Drive?
Yes,
It looks like it's co-used as open space. Do you know that to be a fact?
I don't know whether, in fact, is included in that number.
And would you agree with me that including the emergency access as open space would be incompatible?
It's not how I would calculate it, but at the same time, I'm not sure, I'm not aware of any prohibitions on that.
And you were here for the testimony of Mr. Bazunas about the revised assessment of alluvial soils.
Yes,
And those are the Bowman soils that are listed up in the upper left-hand corner of the NA8.
yeah, I think it's Bowmansville.
Thank you.
But yes,
Yes.
that's correct.
And if I read the plan correctly, there's a white line that shows the location of the Bowmansville soils. Is that right?
I'm going to object. This is outside the testimony that Mr. Kennedy presented, and these questions would be much better served to be asked to the project engineer.
Well, he's asking questions about the open space, and his testimony pertained to the open space.
He's asking about alluvial soils,
Overruled.
if you know.
Could you repeat the question, please?
See lots 42 and 43?
Yes.
As you read the plan, does it not appear that the Bowmansville soils are actually encroaching into lots 42 and 43, or to put it another way, 42 and 43 encroach into the alluvial? See that?
As noted on this plan, that is correct.
And if you look down at that above-ground basin, down in the lower left-hand corner of the plan, same thing. There's open space that's laying over the Bowmansville soils, yes?
Object. Again, he is not the witness to answer this question, and it was completely outside of the direct testimony.
He testified about, he may not know the answer, and if he doesn't know the answer, he can just say that.
But he's also not an engineer, and he wasn't the one who plotted the alluvial soils. So he is not the correct witness to answer the question.
The question was, if he sees it on the plan, he's able to answer that question.
He
We
was
can
not
barely
asked this
read
on
these plans.
direct.
We can barely read them. So if he can't read it and he doesn't know, then he can just say
You
that.
can barely read the plans. You got large-sized copies of these plans.
Well, right now, I'm looking at your exhibit book.
Okay, well, we also provided a large-sized copy
All right,
of
objection
AA.
overruled. Mr. Kennedy, can you answer the question or not?
It appears that, well, I guess, please repeat the question again.
Does it appear to you that the open space surrounding the basin in the lower left-hand corner of A8 encroach into the area marked for Bowmansville soils, alluvial soils?
There is a line of alluvial soils going up to the basin area. It does not go into the basin.
Goes into the open space, green area.
I'm not really sure that that is the open space.
Okay,
All of the lots are the same color green. So in that sense, I don't know. Certain.
okay.
Just for clarification, I'm looking at proposed common open space A, which is not green. Is that what we're talking about here? Or are we talking about the green area that looks like it's where the lots back up?
Talking about the lower left-hand corner,
The part that's not green, that looks like woods in the aerial photo?
no, the part that is green, that's between the brown area and the white line that runs between and parallel to the brown line and the basin.
Okay,
Someone else can clear it up.
okay.
Oh. In your review of documents, Mr. Kennedy, in preparation for your participation in this project, did you review the Hatfield Township Greenway and Trails Network Master Plan?
I'm going to object. What's the relevance?
I didn't hear the end of it because you fell off. The Greenway what plan? What was it?
Network Master Plan.
The Greenway Network Master Plan.
Yeah, the trail plan.
Okay. Overruled, Julie. You can talk about what he reviewed. He either did or he didn't.
I did not review it for this assignment, no.
And earlier, when we're talking about alluvial soils and open space, would it be fair to say that when you review this plan and offer your opinions, you're relying on the calculations and data provided by the engineer for the plan in order to arrive at your conclusions?
That's correct. I did not do the calculations.
So you wouldn't have an opinion on whether the trail buffer to Plan North would actually support excavation for a berm, remaining existing plantings, new plantings, and the trail. You would not be in a position to talk about that.
That is accurate. I would not.
All the way to Plan Left, a brown area.
Mm-hmm.
There's a stream that runs through it from Plan North to Plan South, yes?
Yes, there is.
And there's a very large area, it looks like it's recorded as 2.137 acres of open space, labeled Open Space A. Do you see that?
Yes.
The trail that's proposed along the bottom of the plan doesn't go into that open space. Instead, it makes a hard right back to the sidewalk. Is that accurate?
Yes, it does.
Do you know what's property use south of the plan corner, open space A?
Yes, that is land that's owned by Hatfield Township and its open space.
And then there's actually another parcel south of that that was dedicated by the Del Webb development as open space.
That's correct.
Did I hear you correctly that you have not seen a market analysis?
That is correct. I have not seen a market analysis.
You offered multiple opinions about the need for residential housing, yes?
That is correct.
And this is based on your background and work as a planner?
And the fact that I read the news every morning.
So it's a lay opinion, not a professional opinion.
Both.
And would you not agree with me that the need that we read so much about is for affordable housing or attainable housing?
I would disagree with that. The need is for all types of housing. However, there is a greater need for higher density housing than lower density housing.
Did you review the easement for access across the adjoining property to Orvilla Road that's proposed for the emergency access?
I have not.
Those are all the questions I have of this witness.
I have a few, and then maybe we take a comfort break, but I could crank out a couple. Okay. John, if you could go to the exhibit book from tonight. The Walter property, A16, testified about 2 access points. There's not an emergency access on this plan, right? That dark area is not emergency. Is that true?
No, the dark area is a utility easement, and that was a road stub that was left, or that was created, a road stub out to Cowpath Road. And according to my recollection was they actually split that piece of land up and gave half to each lot owner. The actual dark area is a utility easement.
Okay, so there is a full access on Cowpath, and there's one on, is that Township Line? Township Line Road.
Township Line Road,
Okay.
correct.
What's the distance from Cowpath, that Cowpath intersection of the Walters subdivision road to the intersection with Township Line?
I could not tell you.
Give me an approximation.
I would rather not, because it's blurry and it's a reduced plan and I can't read it clearly.
From what I can see, it looks like 260 feet. Being familiar with the property, does that sound about right?
It's probably more than that. The graphic scale alone is 120 feet long.
So greater than 260 probably.
Yes. Mhm.
Okay. And now the distance to the other access on Township Line.
I could not tell you that either. It's a significant distance.
I see 2 numbers, 563.44 feet and 302.01. Maybe if we added those two?
Your eyes are better than mine.
Well, I'm cheating. I'm lifting my glasses and looking very closely. But there's a significant distance, more than double or maybe double than the distance from the Cowpath access to the Township Line access?
Yes, the 2 intersections have different separations.
Okay. Could you turn to A17? So as I look at this plan, I see an access to Elroy Road. Do you see that?
Correct, on the left-hand side.
Okay. And then I see one down to Durstein Road. Do you see that?
Yes,
And then before you get to Durstein, there's an intersection with Bellevue Lane, correct?
correct.
So you could go either way on Bellevue. Okay, so I see 3 intersections there, correct?
Yeah, actually, there's 2 intersections with,
I'm sorry, say again?
there's 2 intersections with Elroy Lane.
Okay, great. I missed that. Thank you. Okay, moving on to A18. We call it Bexley, although the plan says Stone Ridge Acquisitions, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. The emergency access that goes to Holly Lane, is that solely on the Bexley property?
I could not tell you that. May or may not be, based on this reduced plan. Greater detail.
Okay, and then if you could turn to Nope, that's it. They're all the questions I have. You want to take a break, board? All right, let's take maybe 5 to 10 minutes for a comfort break, and we'll be back. Okay, let's get back on the record. Everyone set? Yes, all the nodding heads. Okay, so we'll see if the board members have any questions, and then we'll go to the public parties first, and then go see if you have another witness from there, okay? Okay, board members, any questions?
Yes, a question regarding the sewer sizing, and it's reference to,
Stay close to the mic, Jerry.
oh, sorry, Exhibit 20. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the comment was made that the sewer line would have a public benefit. And my question is, when that sewer line gets resized, is it resized only for the additional homes in that development? Or is it resized such that whatever homes might be on septic or whatever development might be put in the future, it can accommodate that?
In my experience, there's usually some accommodation for additional capacity, but in this particular case, I'm not sure because I have not had the direct contact with the.
So, yeah, so it could be just for the benefit of that resident or that development and not for others to tie in and not have to increase the capacity again.
That's not likely considering the cost to put in the sewer line. They typically do insist, not just sewer, but also water too.
Right.
That there be additional capacity incorporated into that while you are actually installing lines.
Additional capacity above and beyond what the development is proposed?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Anyone else have questions?
Yeah. Hi. Just have a questions regarding open space. So, what is the definition to be open space? Definition? Like, what is the requirement to be open space?
The definition under the ordinance, I would have to.
Yes.
You're asking him to read the definition in the zoning ordinance? Okay.
Common open. Oh. In the zoning ordinance, common open space is a parcel or parcels of land or an area of water or combination of land and water within the development site and designed and intended for the use or enjoyment of residents of a development, not including streets, off-street parking areas, and areas set aside for public facilities.
So the open space for enjoyable, like, so you see like there's a stream over there, so it should be accessible, right? Accessible to the public to be an open space.
It would be, yes.
If it is the stream, is that also considered an open space?
Well, under the cluster ordinance, well, under this definition I just read, yes, it could be a combination of land or water.
I think his question has to do with access on the other side of the water.
The,
Go ahead.
well, the only, what I would point out is that the area on the other side of the stream to the south is owned by the township and would be contiguous with other open space that the township owns. In terms of access directly across the stream for the potential residents of this development, that's something that could be entertained. I think that could either be a condition or worked out in land development.
I'm not seeing, is there any proposal to be accessible to the other side of the property, right?
Oh, it looks like from looking at an aerial, there may be a stream crossing nearby to township land. So those are things that would have to be looked at, and then in land development, if it would be considered appropriate, then that could be dealt with at that time.
Anything else? Board members?
Yeah, I have a question or two. Testified earlier with regard to a number of properties, not the one that the application is about, as it relates to the design, the open space design. Is your testimony tonight that those are similar designs to the application that's before us?
My testimony is that they have similar characteristics to the plan that we're evaluating tonight. They vary in width. They are, in some cases, interrupted by streets, but in all cases, they are still connected by sidewalks. And so it would really be the characteristics. Obviously, every site is different, and you have to respond to the physical constraints, the shape of the parcel, and so on. But I think in terms of characteristics, they are very similar. Some of them are more fragmented than this.
So it's fair to say that each of them is unique from the other, correct?
Yes, I think that is fair, yes.
I don't have anything else.
Okay. Any other questions from the board? Okay, I see none. Okay, parties to the hearing. I have a list of you. If anyone has questions, please feel free to line up so that you can order. I need your name again, please. Hold the mic down for me.
I can.
Thank you. Tell me your name again, ma'am.
Victoria Camuso.
Thank you, Victoria.
I just have one question tonight.
Sure.
And when we get here, we see this information. Is there any way that the residents can be informed prior to us getting here? We have very little time to ask our questions.
That's a question?
Well-
This is conditional use. This is a hearing. This is a typical procedure. It's no different than any other conditional use hearing that has occurred in this township. In fact, it probably is a bit different in some ways, but this is conditional use procedure
What?
governed by the MPC.
Yeah, the only issue that I see is that there's not enough exhibits for the other parties. I mean, you provide them for council and for the board members, but there's parties that don't have copies to be able to review these things even on the spot to ask questions.
They can have the exhibit booklet. I gave 2 copies out. There's additional here.
Have about 30 parties though, Julie. Not all here, obviously, but I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people waiting to ask questions, and they're all parties, and there's only 2 exhibit books.
Okay,
So I
well,
think that's the point. You would like the opportunity, because we're not seeing this stuff early either, but at least we have copies up here. That's, you understand that,
That
right?
is my question.
Any response, Julie?
I'm not sure what you want me to respond to. This is a typical proceeding. You've been through many of these proceedings yourself, and you understand the process and the procedure as is governed by this state statute governing this, which is the Pennsylvania Municipalities Planning Code. And there are exhibit booklets here that they can look at. There's extras. I have given multiple to the township and to the board members and to township staff. There's additional exhibit booklets. There's 6 parties here. We certainly have 6 exhibit booklets.
I believe you said you handed out 2.
Do. There's others that we can hand out. I'm sure that we can provide the others that are not being used at this present time, since questions were already asked.
So I think your point is made that
Answers-
haven't been provided with the exhibits, just like all the other parties have. Is
Correct.
that your point?
Yeah, just
Okay, thank you.
To give us ample time to be a part of it.
All right, anything else? Okay. Your name, ma'am? Hi.
Susan Donahue.
What's your question, Susan?
I actually have a few. You had shown us plans as examples of other cluster developments, and as Mr. Zippel clarified, each one is unique, but you had used these as examples. So there's a few points that I wanted to clarify. The Westport, you had said that that was the only one that had existing stubs in the development, but that has 4 access points. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And those stubs, we happened to look at all those houses, and I recall, and you can confirm, that Bellevue and Westport were being developed and designed and sold almost at the same time. There was not a...
That's not correct.
We looked at houses in both locations, so there wasn't...
Objection, this is testimony, it's not a question.
Was there a 25-year gap between the houses being built?
Not a
and-
25-year gap, but
short
there
gap?
was significant amount of time.
How do you define a significant amount of time?
I could not tell you in years, but it's they were not developed at the same time. Bellevue already was existing.
But there is 4 access points to that, correct?
To Westport, yes, that's correct.
And how many houses are on there?
Off the top of my head, I think it's somewhere in the I think it's about 85 or 6, I believe.
Let's see, I think you called it A16 Alter.
No, okay.
That, I don't know if I'm referring
That's
to the
correct.
right one. You mentioned that there's 2, and they're both off of not existing developments. Is that correct?
There is one access point off of,
Township and one off of Cowpath?
that's correct.
Okay. And there was one conditional hearing for that?
That was a very complicated project, and there were multiple steps in that.
Were residents
As
involved?
As Mr. Panzer mentioned, there was a rezoning of a portion of the property, and yes, there was a number of public meetings that took place for both the rezoning and also for the conditional use. And then after the conditional use, there were additional public meetings for the approval of the land development.
Were there concerns raised by parties? Were there parties involved that raised questions as we are here?
There were some for the rezoning. I could not tell you if there were for the conditional use.
And how many houses are there?
That one is, I believe, 63 or 4.
And then Holly Lane, that only has 36 houses, is what I heard you say. And the size of the lots, are they all, there's some that are larger lots?
The minimum lot size is 12,000 square feet.
What's the maximum there?
There is no maximum. I think
But they
there
were
is
built
one lot
already.
which is 4 some odd acres that could be subdivided in the future.
They're not all the same 12,000. That's just the...
There's a slight variation in them, but most of them are around the minimum.
And you mentioned, and on the thing, there's a paved road off of, or emergency access is what I heard you refer to it. Where was the construction vehicles for, actually for all of those developments that you pointed out as examples? What access points did the construction
I
vehicles
could not tell
take?
you. I typically do not get involved in construction.
Let's make sure we have a little gap between question and answer
Okay,
for the court
sorry.
reporter.
I'm
Thank
trying
you.
to, again, I can't formulate too much ahead of time, so I'm trying to clarify as I do it. So who is able to answer that question about who designs or determines
I
what the
would say
construction
either,
entrance is?
usually that is designed by the engineer, and sometimes it is fine-tuned by the contractor.
Spoke to, there's some testimony, and I believe you said it was part professional, part layman testimony on market research, and I believe you also testified that, and you said it was your opinion that the values of our house would not change. What do you define as the value of the house? Are you
Well, actually, I am not an appraiser, so I can't really tell you what the value of a house is. I can tell you that these homes will most likely sell for significantly more than the homes off of the neighborhood to the north, and therefore, what I actually said is that they would not have a negative impact on the home values. And I do believe that, and that is also my experience and what I've seen.
Okay, so I'm sorry, my question was, what do you define as the value of a house? And it sounds like you're saying the value of someone's home is only the price that it can be sold at? Is that what you're testifying?
The phrase in the ordinance is value of home, I believe, so, or
Right,
value of property. I'm not going to parse what different amounts, what value means to different people.
The value can mean different things to different people. It's not just the price.
Of course it is. It is subjective, like many of the criteria in the zoning ordinance.
And you also testified about, and you referred to like the establishment, and when you were talking about the safety and welfare and enjoyment of the neighborhood.
Correct.
In the establishment, what constitutes the establishment of the development?
I'm not sure that I understand where, I don't believe I used the word establish.
You know, the zoning ordinance says establishment of it. Could that be referring to the construction phase of a development? Is the establishment of it?
I think referring to 282-205B4.
Want to give him a minute to look at that? Okay. Hang on, Susan, let him look at it.
So number 4 in the criteria under 282-205B states that the establishment of the conditional use will not impede the normal and orderly development or improvement of surrounding properties or uses permitted in the district. So what that's really saying is that by establishing this conditional use, in other words, by allowing single-family homes in a clustered setting, that it cannot impede the normal and orderly development or improvement of the surrounding properties for uses permitted in the district. So, in other words, by allowing this conditional use here, does it impede the development of the two vacant parcels that are adjacent to this property? And I don't believe that it would impede the development of those properties.
So the establishment does not, could also refer to the construction phase. Establishing something could also mean the construction phase, though.
Not necessarily. I think in this statement, at least the way I read it, is it's the establishment of the conditional use. In other words, by allowing single-family homes on a cluster development on this property. That's the
Is there another
establishment.
statement, though, that talks about the welfare and safety of the neighboring residents? That was the one I thought I had heard you refer to.
I don't actually see that. The criteria directly above is that the conditional use will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of the properties in the immediate vicinity for the purposes already permitted, nor substantially diminish and impair property values within the neighborhood. We're proposing single-family dwellings. The neighborhood you live in is made up of single-family dwellings.
There's another zoning that you had read, I think Julie had read it, that had to do with the safety and welfare.
Well, let's move up the line here. The next one above that is that the establishment, maintenance, or operation of the conditional use will not be detrimental to or endanger the public health, safety, morals, comfort, or general welfare. And I do not believe that by allowing the conditional use on this property, it will be injurious to the surrounding properties or the public health, safety, morals, comfort, or general welfare.
And that's the one I was referring to, and I was referring to the establishing of it and having construction come through development, come through established neighborhoods. So,
Well,
for the ones, and I can't testify because I have to ask questions, but.
I would say that in that phrase also, establishment simply means by establishing the use. Now, they do refer to the establishment, maintenance, or operation, and obviously you are concerned about the construction of any homes here, and I do understand that. That is a very reasonable concern. That is something that would typically not be handled in a conditional use setting. That is part of the land development process where construction and phasing and all of those issues have to be worked out before the project is even given any kind of approval. But that's a different procedure, and it involves this board, but at a later date. The more important and critical board would be the Planning Commission, because that's where all the details get hashed out in terms of the construction, the phasing, also things such as the buffering, the type of landscaping that is used, and so forth.
And as I said, you've hit the nail on the head. Most of the residents are not concerned as much with the use of the land, but with the establishing of it and then the impact to our neighborhood. And you did testify that you felt there was no expected impact on our existing neighborhood. Do you feel if the entrance was on Grapevine versus an entrance on our villa, there would be a difference impact? If you were Mr. Patel, who lived on Grapevine, and the entrance to the development was on Grapevine, his impact be different if the entrance was actually on Orvilla? Would that be a different impact?
Are you speaking of the construction access impact? Is that what you're?
No, I'm just talking about, you had said that the use of the land would have no impact on the existing residents. And I'm asking whether you feel the entrance to the proposed development being on Grapevine has an impact on the residents of the existing development.
It will have an impact to the extent that right now there is a road stub that was built to a vacant property that was intended to carry traffic from a future development.
That was an opinion.
And
many other people's opinion is that it was not meant for that.
I'll tell you.
Action, you're testifying.
So hang on, you asked a question, you got to let him finish the
Okay,
answer.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I can't object. Go ahead.
Obviously, whichever road stub gets used, or if both get used, then there would be two access points. It would have an impact to the extent that where there was no traffic coming out at one point, there would be some traffic. There's no doubt about that, and I think we've had a traffic engineer discuss that. Any kind of sort of speculation on entrances to Orvilla Road are just that, they're speculation. We don't own any frontage on Orvilla Road, and so it's not an option.
The address of the property is Orvilla Road, correct?
It is Orvilla Road. I can't explain that. I don't work for the post office, so I can't tell you that. The only other thing I would mention is that the developer and the builder that built your home owned this property. They would have used those road stubs and just extended the neighborhood. It's exactly what would have happened. And it would have the same result as what we're proposing. It's just at the time when they built your home, he didn't happen to own that parcel. And so the board, or the planning commission, or both,
That point in time.
decided that the best thing to do was to put road stubs in there. And in my business, well, first of all, I will reiterate what I said before. Road stubs are good. Absolutely. Despite what some of the opinions in this room may be, they do represent good planning practice. Now, the cost to install a road is very expensive. You're probably talking about $400 to $500 a linear foot. I can guarantee you that nobody paved that 100-foot, 150-foot road to let a farmer go in there. Absolutely not.
Well, there's a driveway right to the end, so it was paved to go to that person's house. It didn't go beyond that driveway.
That's because it wasn't part of the subdivision.
And when that was built, that they would not have been able to build what you're proposing to build. Zoning didn't exist. The people who built it never imagined that we would be talking
Action,
about
you're
78 houses.
testifying.
I know, I was going to say.
Sustained, Susan.
So, I know.
Keep it as
I know.
questions, please.
So to reiterate what your answer was, that there would be a significant impact with the entrance on. You
No,
first
that's
said
not-
that there would be.
That's not what I said. I
There would
said
be
there would be
impact.
an impact.
There would be impact to the residents that live there.
Yes, of course, there would be some impact from traffic.
And construction, if there's
Construction
there, which we
is a
wouldn't have.
temporary issue, and it goes away. Construction ends, and when it's ended, that impact.
Life is temporary, and it ends when it ends. My children are only in my home
All right, all
for
right,
a
all
certain
right.
time.
Let's
That's-
stay focused. Any more
that's,
questions? Any more
Not
questions?
relevant, so. All right, I think I let other people ask.
Leah Hartzell. I just, last name? Leah, Leah, Hartzell, Hartzel. All right, I just have one question. How can the development examples that you showed us compare to the plan being proposed with 78 homes to be developed with only one way in and one way out onto, not onto a major road, and into an established community with a 25-mile-per-hour speed limit? Out of all those examples,
Well, I'm not going to speak to speed limit because I'm not a traffic engineer.
well, that's safety, so.
What I will say is that there are 3 access points to this property. One of them is a full access, which is the road going out to Grapevine. And I think it's been discussed before that if there was the desire, if there was a condition to complete the connection to Buckthorn, then that would be acceptable.
Thomas Deller, you made the comment about good practice to put in a spur road.
Right.
Any reason you know of why that wasn't done? Why they're not showing any on the plan for future development beyond?
That's something that could also be imposed as a condition as well. That's exactly one of the things that could occur here. So if the township thought that it would be prudent to provide a road stub, then I think that that's something that could be accommodated.
Okay, thank you. As far as, I guess, she asked the questions about the impact on people. Is it typical when they're doing construction? How are the roads, what's the impact on the roads that these construction vehicles use? Would they be responsible to clean up and repair damage to any roads or curbs or that sort of thing?
That's really out of my wheelhouse. I could not address that. I can tell you that those items are addressed in land development because a project cannot get final approval until they satisfy the township in terms of how the construction will take place, where the construction access points will be, and all of those issues, where the phasing would be, those types of things. So that has to get worked out in the land development phase.
As part of the zoning, we see the retention basins and such around. I live slightly below this construction on Leon Drive, but we have terrible water problems during half-inch rains, 1-inch rains, inch and a half rains, 2-inch rains. The roads practically flood down below Sourwood. So we're concerned on that impact. Where are the likely places for the storm drains systems or for the retention basins to drain to?
Well, all of that does get worked out by the engineer, not by planners, but by the engineer, and that gets worked out in the land development phase. And that's where what you're seeing here is basically a concept for stormwater management, but it's an educated concept in that sense. They actually have to do quite a bit more work, though, in terms of really fine-tuning the stormwater, exactly where it will discharge, and that could cause a slight reconfiguration of the plan or the loss of a lot or whatever. So that would be handled at a slightly different time. One thing I will say, though, is that this is a property that right now does not have any stormwater controls at all. So right now you've got sheet flow coming off of this site and is completely uncontrolled. Also, I am not certain exactly of the date when the homes in your neighborhood were built, but I can tell you that stormwater regulations have changed multiple times since then and are much, much more stringent. So in all, this actually would help alleviate many of the problems that you're experiencing now. And the other thing I would encourage you to do, if this does move forward, would be absolutely attend planning commission meetings, because that's when these things get worked out. The engineers, they really do value the feedback that they get from the surrounding neighbors, because what that does is it gives them a very good sense for where the stormwater problems exist. And so it gives them a better feel for the type of solution that would be appropriate for that site.
Great, thank you.
Steve Bushman, Buschmann. You said you've done condemnation work?
Yes, I have.
Okay. Since this has a Orvilla Road address, has any thoughts been given to doing any condemnation work?
Well, my applicant does not have the ability to condemn land. I don't believe that the township would be willing to condemn land to aid a developer. So I don't know that that would be a possibility in this case.
Ms. Patel, Jignesh. You are hired to provide ideas of better development.
Typically, we provide a wide variety of different services.
For particular this project, why are you hired for?
I was hired to assist in the conditional use process and review the plans, review the documents, and then also the appropriateness of the development at this location.
And once you reviewed it, you will provide the comment for the proposed development, right?
Yes, exactly.
You had mentioned that several development regarding the emergency access and cartway width and everything, yes?
I didn't get the last part of your statement.
You had provided a sample or example of the different various projects that have been done.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
First, I'm going to go with the Walter Farm.
Okay.
How many access does the Walter Farm has it?
It has 2.
Okay, and how many units there were proposed?
I believe it's 64.
Access. Does they have an emergency access on it?
No, there is no emergency access.
For the same development, you said open space, there's like 3 or 4 different open space?
No, on that development, there were 2 different pieces of open space.
And do you know what is the maximum distance between those 2 open space? Maximum or minimum?
I could not tell you.
Based on looking at the plan, they will looks like both sides of the road, right?
Yes, the 2 pieces of open space are split by the road, the entry road off of Cowpath Road.
What's the normal right-of-way width for the roadways?
It would be 50 feet.
Somewhere around 50 foot.
50
plus or
foot
minus.
on the upper axis, you would have to walk down the street a little bit to the next intersection, so I'm not sure what that distance would be.
Okay. Next one, we're going to take the Westport Farm or West Point Farm.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what is the maximum and minimum distance between the open space?
No, I don't. Those open spaces on that particular project are scattered throughout the property.
What is the total area of the development, land development?
The area of the site, is that what you're?
Yes, yes.
The area of the site is 77.25 acres.
And how many access on that development?
On this one, there was 1 access onto Durstein, an access out to the road stub on Bellevue Lane, and 2 access onto Elroy, so 4 access points in total.
And how many units were designed?
85 plus 1 existing, 86.
The next one is the Stone Bridge. Same question. Do you know the maximum minimum distance between the open space?
Sorry, which plan?
Stone Bridge.
Stonebridge, Bexley?
Oh, the Bexley. It looks like there's, between the 2 sort of northern pieces, there's probably about 40 feet separating the open space along the sidewalk. As you move throughout the plan, though, you would have to walk several hundred feet to cross the street and get to the next piece of open space.
And how many access does that have?
1 plus 1 emergency.
What's the total site area for the?
36.2 acres.
How many units were?
A total of 36.
36 by 1 access. I was going to ask the Dale Webb, but Dale Webb, I'm going to take it away because gated community, right?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand that.
All right. I'm going to ask the same question for the Del Webb.
Okay.
What is the cart width? I see there's a different cart width on the plan.
Yeah, this one, they had a variation in cartway width. The streets are 28 feet and 24 feet, depending on what type of units they're serving.
And that Del Webb is a 55 and up community, right?
It is. It's an age-restricted senior community.
And it is a gated community?
The northern entrance has a gate. I'm not sure that the southern entrance is, but I guess we can call it a gated community.
When the access was provided, how many access were provided for the Del Webb?
There are 2 full-time access points off of 40-foot road and 1 emergency access out to Penfield.
And how many units were designed on that site plan?
321.
And the access is the traffic controlled by the signalization or just the stop signs?
The northern access has a traffic light with Clemens Road.
Going back to Walter Farm again, because I forgot one question.
Okay.
There is no emergency access for the fire truck or anything.
That's correct.
And there's a 2 access.
That's correct.
Bring up that on the screen, please.
There we go.
So I'm kind of looking at the
So
road.
this is Cowpath Road. I'll just get you oriented. This is Cowpath Road, and this is Township Line Road.
Roads, it's kind of loop around it everywhere, right? From the both access.
Correct.
If something happened or something got road blocked on one end, there's access to the other side.
That is correct.
Okay, that was my thing. Now, coming back to this Leon Drive development, in your opinion, do you prefer 1 access or 2 access with the 78 houses?
I was here and heard the testimony of Mr. Hammond, the traffic engineer, and he has stated that he is comfortable with the 1 full-time access point. I think that I am very much aware of his reputation and the work that they do, and I think if he deems that it is appropriate and can handle the traffic, then I would believe that. However, Mr. Pizzina, and I believe Mr. Hammond also did talk about this, we would also accept a condition that the second road stub be opened up, and then there would be 2 access points, full access points.
Have you studied the 20-foot right-of-way that's going off to the Orvilla from the southwesterly corner?
Oh, you mean the easement?
Yeah, the 20-foot easement.
Right here. I've seen the mapping. I haven't really studied it, but I've seen the mapping, and I've driven by that point on Orvilla Road. I have not driven up the access point.
As a planner, is your opinion to put like some sort of one-way access at least? Divert some more traffic?
Again, we would need to actually own the land to be able to do that, and we don't own the land. We have an easement across it, but without actually owning the property, we could not do something like that.
The access easement written on a document and deeded to the Montgomery County.
Well, it's recorded in Montgomery County.
But it's access easement through
Correct,
to
yeah.
the property.
Correct.
Did you review or read that document at all?
I have not thoroughly reviewed it. I have seen the document and looked at it, and I've seen the mapping and looked at it. but I do know that the engineers have thoroughly researched it, our attorney has thoroughly researched it, and we have the ability to use it for emergency access only. We do not, it doesn't necessarily give us the right to build a road there.
You said there was a stub at the Grapevine and the Buckthorn provided for the future development of this land.
Correct.
You have discussion with the engineer that why is only one, why didn't open the Buckthorn?
I'm not sure I understand that.
Why not using a both stub? If there's a two stub, but up against the property that you are developing, why not use both of them?
I think that we said that we would be willing to use both of them. I believe that what Mr. Hammond testified to is going up Grapevine would make more sense because it's already a four-way stop, and Buckthorn is simply a T intersection. And there also definitely would be some impact to the homeowner that lived directly across from that intersection. So because he felt that it wasn't necessary as a full-time access, he was comfortable with recommending this. But we have stated that we would be willing to open both access points.
The effect to the T intersection across the street, what does gonna affect? I heard Matt say, traffic designer said, something about the headlights.
It would
right?
be headlights, yes, that's correct.
You know that on the corner of the Grapevine and the Leon Drive, there is one house not parallel to the streetway. It's what's up in the, on what do you say, triangles?
On an angle?
Yeah, on an angle.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Does that gonna affect the headlights? When the traffic's gonna cross the four-way?
Well, I couldn't say. I don't know.
As a planner, you probably provide best for the future development, surrounding lands and everything. That's what you are hired for, right?
Mm-hmm.
Would you prefer to put any additional stub on southwesterly side of the property line and southeasterly easterly side of the property?
Are you talking about the property along the bottom here?
Bottom here and on the top right.
Top right.
Up where there's a field.
Up here?
No, up on by the field.
Where, of open space?
Yeah, right
there.
that property line. That goes from
Right.
the Leon.
This is not our property, neither is this, but I have spoken with the applicant in the past about road stubs, and that is something that they are willing to accommodate too. That's something that could be a condition placed on the condition of approval.
On the south side of this plan, there's a 10 lots, different lots.
You're talking about here?
Yes.
There's many more than 10 lots here.
Yes.
There's a lot. Those are commonly known as movie lots, and there's quite a few of them.
Yes. Right after that lot, looks like there's some sort of public right-of-way or something.
Well, there's a combination of very, very small narrow lots and also some small, what would be considered undersized right-of-ways by today's standards. And they crisscross the entire property.
Mr. Patel, could you stand next to the podium or something so that we can hear you? on the
My
mic?
question is, after those lot, looks like, looking at the plan, it looks like about 100 foot from the property line.
Correct. Okay.
After 100 foot, looks like two lines going straight. There is no line in between it. Is that the public right-of-way?
No. That is. Really want me to explain this? Okay. That entire parcel, the majority of it is owned by the North Penn School District, contains a development of very small lots called movie lots and some right-of-ways. That entire property, most of the property is owned by the North Penn School District. There are, I believe, 3 landowners kind of in the middle of that, and they don't have public roads, but they do have access.
Did you pull up the tax assessment when you were reviewing this property?
Yes, I have looked at the tax maps all around here, and I'm quite familiar with the property below this site.
My suggestion to the township and board commissioner, can you guys look at the tax assessor map?
Well, they can on their own, but the only evidence that's in front of the board are exhibits that are presented at this hearing. So if there's something you want the board to consider, you have to present it as an exhibit.
Yeah, I don't have the copy, but can I say something as a statement-wise, a little bit?
No, just questions.
Okay. The access on the Grapevine, I live right at the corner. My driveway is about 50 feet from the stop sign that proposing in the future. Does that, my driveway is going to affect with the traffic? Impacted with the traffic, not affect.
I don't know that that's necessarily true, but that would be a question for Mr. Hammond, not for me.
I think that should be, I have it for today.
My name is Donna Bushman. Shall I spell that? Okay. So my one question has to do with the conditional use hearing that we're at right now. In your opinion, you said that there really wouldn't be very much impact because of the stub or stump, I'm not sure which word you used, stub road, and it was meant to have a development in there. Is that correct?
I didn't say that there would be minimal impact because of the stub road. I did say that, just separate statements, in my opinion, there will be minimal impact if this use is allowed because it's the same as the use directly to the north. I did say that also that because it was a stub which the township had placed there on a previous subdivision, and especially because they are fully improved to the property line, that they were intended to be used.
Okay, so if you believe that they would be intended to be used for development similar to what was built around that piece of property, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So then the purpose of this conditional use hearing is to allow a different type of community, wouldn't you say? I know it has single-family homes on it, but the surrounding community has larger lots, double the size that this new community is going to have. Is that correct?
It has larger lots. I don't know that they're double the size, though.
Well, they're, what is it, about a quarter-acre lot, would you say?
These are 12,000, and I think the surrounding lots are 20,000.
Surrounding lots are half acre, so I don't know what that is in feet. Is that comparison? Is that correct?
It would be 20,000 and some change, but I recall looking up lots there and seeing 20,000. For some of them. They vary a little bit.
Yeah, they do. Some are a little bit bigger, I think. But nonetheless, so if the lots on this project are smaller, it allows more houses. Is that correct?
It does allow more houses.
And more
by
cars?
virtue.
Let him finish, please.
By
And more cars.
virtue of being a cluster development. That's the nature of the cluster development. And the purpose of it is to try to create some open space and set it aside. Otherwise, if it were developed by right, there would be no open space.
There would be no open space in a development such as this if it was allowed for comparative acreage? Is that what you're saying?
No, what I'm saying is that you can develop this under the underlying standards or the by right standards, which would be the same lot size as your lots, I believe. Now, sometimes over time, standards get revised. As opposed to doing a development this way, which is a cluster development on slightly smaller lots. The purpose is to try to create and preserve some open space.
I don't understand that, but I can't answer another question because I don't know what you're talking about. You're saying that they wouldn't be able to have open space if they had bigger lots?
No, they wouldn't be required to have open space. Under this option, they are required to have open space.
So is that a bad thing?
Well, you tell me. The difference with the Leon Drive neighbors is that instead of the 50-foot buffer and the rear yard of the new lot, you would have lots going directly to your back lot line, which meant that somebody could, if trees are on their property, they can cut the trees down. They can stack up their firewood there. They could put a shed right off the property line.
As we do now.
That is correct. And so what we are proposing is a buffer which would soften that effect, that impact, and provide a little bit of a buffering and separation between your homes and any new homes.
But you would still require the water containing things in the basins.
Oh, the stormwater basins?
Yeah, well, that would still be.
Stormwater is required no matter what.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Donna. Sure.
Good evening. Nick Oropeza, O-R-O-P-E-Z-A. I had a question in regards to the planning. You were hired to look at the plan?
Correct.
And as a result of that, did you make any changes to the plan?
The one thing that we discussed was the possibility of a road stub that to the property to the south. I have talked to the applicant about that. I would not necessarily recommend any major changes. I actually looked at this property for another developer probably 15 years ago, and my plan was almost the same.
Same as this plan?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay. Do you have any concerns with this plan?
I don't have any concerns. I think that because it is just a concept for a use, that there's a lot of details that need to be worked out, but that's what you do in the land development phase. Start to work those out, and part of that also does involve working with the neighbors. For instance, along the Leon Drive neighbors, going out and on a lot-by-lot basis, determining, what kind of buffers do you folks want back here? That's why I'm encouraging all of you to go to the Planning Commission meetings if this does move forward, because that is the forum where that gets worked out, not here.
And if you had to guess, how many total hours have you worked on this?
I have no idea.
10, 20, 5?
I've been in these hearings more than 10 hours. So I have no idea.
Couldn't estimate?
No, I have no idea.
Rick Vasso. I have a kind of a broader question, and
it's taken me a while to kind of formulate this, so this might come out a little funny, but as a planner, and in your testimony, you indicated that you didn't, in your opinion, think there was a need for a market analysis. But as a planner, when you're looking at a project like this, is your scope of review just simply how the property is being used or potentially going to be developed and its immediate impact to the surrounding neighborhoods, or does that scope get larger? Like, obviously there's traffic involved, but I'm concerned about other impacts, public safety, school side, school zoning and districting and redistricting, things of that nature. How does any of that sort of factor into your review when you're looking at this from a planning standpoint?
It really depends on what it is that you have in front of you. In this case, we have a conditional use application. The MPC is fairly specific on what that means in terms of an evaluation. And then the other factor that we do look at is the township zoning ordinance also contains regulations regarding how conditional uses are administered in the township. There are certain basic standards that exist in the MPC, and when it comes to township regulations, they vary greatly. And so in some cases, you do have to have a wider investigation, so to speak, but in other cases not. In Hatfield Township for a conditional use, it's not required, so we don't necessarily do a study that might be more wide-ranging. Now, we would do a more wide-ranging study if it were a zoning map change. So that's why I say it depends on what exactly you're being presented with, and so you look at what the actual assignment is, and then you look at the various zoning standards and other township standards to see what applies.
Okay. So it really, your scope then kind of is sort of narrowed to just what is proposed here with this land, how many houses, does it make sense where they're laying it out, are they meeting all the right requirements? You're not necessarily factoring in, how is this going, how will 78 homes, single-family homes that will probably bring in an additional several hundred people, many of those potentially kids, you're not looking at how that's going to affect elementary schools, middle schools, high schools in the area, and that sort of thing, right?
We do not look at that for the conditional use process.
Have you ever had to consider that in
Sure.
in other projects?
Sure.
Okay.
Like I said, it depends on what the project is.
Okay.
And where it is, too.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Hey, we're at 9:47. Do you have any redirect after those questions?
I do not.
Okay. Let's talk about our next hearing, right? We're approaching 10, and that's our cutoff. Spoke to the manager about September instead of trying to fit something in August, considering vacation schedules. I was looking at Mondays in September.
He said Labor Day.
I'm on Labor Day? Okay.
Mondays are good. For me.
Okay, so looks like the dais is good for, what's about the meeting? Mondays are clear for the meeting room. Mondays are clear for our schedules. So I'm looking at the 9th or the 16th.
9th works.
Yeah, it's going to be
doesn't work.
difficult. So so August, your regular August meeting, we can't have the hearing on the regular August meeting? So we don't miss a whole month?
Hour.
Be almost like a month and a half. An hour? I mean, if we could get, we're already on the fourth hearing.
The Chapman night? Chapman Scholars
Yeah, well,
is-
they could get an hour after that if they want to wait. So our summer schedule is one a month. We normally have two, so that makes the agendas longer. So that's the same for June, July, and August. But if you really want,
Our August.
I know you're saying no, but the applicant has a right to have hearings within a certain clip. You would be behind a scholarship presentation, an auditor presentation. It would be brutal for you, so.
Okay, I understand.
Might be best.
The regular schedule in September, what's the regular schedule? Because it seems like Mondays are problematic.
Second and fourth Wednesdays.
11th and the 25th.
But
The
second and
11th
fourth
is-
are our regular meetings.
11th is no good for us, but the 25th works.
Oh, I meant 25th if I said 24th. 11th and 25th. Say no, Tom, to the 11th?
25th works for me, yes. Wednesday, September 25th. Yes.
Wouldn't we want it on a night
Hang
that's
on
not
a sec.
We can do the 23rd. I was just trying to not wait 2 months to have a hearing.
All right.
Not good Monday, the 23rd.
Hold on. We're going to dial back because he's telling me other things are happening on different agendas. We're looking at August 28th now. You could beat, that's our regular night, so we would have our regular business, but then we could pick up with you guys when we're done that.
I thought it was problematic because it's a long.
He just said that he's going to move some things to a
Okay.
different night.
August 28th. Oh, you can't?
28th, good?
Yes.
Having a problem with the 28th.
If one of my commissioners
think I
isn't available on the night of our hearing, will you agree to let them read the transcript and participate?
Absolutely, yes.
I think I'm available, but I'm not sure. It's a traveling commitment, and it's right around there. I think I'm all right, though.
All right, but if not, you can read the transcript and still participate. You could also watch the video if you want to.
Which night is this? I'm
We're
sorry.
looking at Wednesday, August 28th.
Yeah, that's not doable.
Not good? All right, back to September.
Already have a hearing. No, it's difficult.
Now we're at September 25th. They said they had problem with Mondays, right? You can't.
What
do-
about Monday, August? You can't. 19th?
You were good September 25th, right? September 25th sounds like it works for everyone.
25th.
August 12th?
Not September 12th.
August 12th.
12th? Nope, not available.
Honestly, I blocked off every fourth Wednesday thinking that was a regular scheduled meeting, and that's when you're going to be scheduled.
That
And
would
you
be
said that
August 28th.
August 28th, I think it was a problem for your team because we were all good with it.
Good. Good.
Comments on that night.
Witness has a hearing?
All three.
I mean, it's your choice. It's your application. He said it sounds like a good night to have it. It's up to you. We have August 28th available. If you can't present that night, then we have to go to September 25th.
All right, we're going to have to do September 25th,
Okay.
accommodate it.
But understand that we do have regular business to do, and then we'll have your hearing. But we're going to move some things so that it's not a packed agenda. Try to give you as much time as possible. You know what you're presenting that night? One witness,
Well,
or
actually, I was going to rest my case.
are you resting now?
Yeah, I'm resting now.
Okay. So if you rest, then it's special counsel's turn, and then we'll move to the parties. So we'll plan that way accordingly. Mr. Panzer, are you hearing that? You're on for September 25th. You'll start that hearing. Okay.
I would just like to move my exhibits into evidence. It's A1 through A20.
Any objection to the exhibits from anybody in the room, including you, Mr. Panzer?
Those stated on the record.
Pardon me?
Those stated on the record. Those objections stated on the record, which you've already ruled on.
Okay. So the objections are stated. We'll flesh that out in the decision. I have them marked. So are we all in agreement on September 25th?
Yes.
And I just want to reserve the right for rebuttal as well.
Of course.
Okay.
All right. So Julie, you're agreeing to a continuance to September 25th. I just want the record to reflect any waivers of time are part of this continuance request, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So a motion is in order to continue this hearing until September 25th, 7:30 p.m. prevailing time. It will occur after our regular business. Is there such a motion?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Residents who are here, there are no notices. This is it. So if you want to mark your calendars, please do so for September 25th, and you can tell your neighbors there's no more mailings, nothing like that. So mark your calendars, and you can adjourn the hearing.
All right, is there a, I'm sorry, was there a question? Yep, is there a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Andrus, second by Commissioner Lustracco. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor of adjournment, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, we're adjourned. Thanks for coming out, folks.